Hi friends, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. Nearly every major Broadway production before they go live in the theater does what's called a dress rehearsal. Now they do multiple rehearsals before they ever get to the dress rehearsal. But in the dress rehearsal, everybody puts on their costume and they go through the play as if the audience was sitting there. Now, nobody's sitting there, but the audience is not there because they need to make sure they get it right. So they run through the whole thing and at least once, and sometimes they run through it two or three times before they really get it right. And the reason that you do that is because even in a modern play, there are a lot of moving parts. Well, I think maybe that lesson has been lost on the prosecutors in this case. And the reason I say that is because not only did they have all kinds of technical glitches on opening, when they get ready to start examining their witnesses, they continue to have all kinds of technical glitches. And this first sheriff's deputy who is testifying here is talking about what he did after he arrived on the scene. And they are playing snippets of his body camera. And of course, they have blinded the live stream because it's graphic. And so I'm going to be here to help you understand a little bit about what they're talking about. And we're going to run through the first little part of this, and then I'll stop it where we need to.
Okay, let's stop there. Officer, what are you getting out of your truck? What's happening in that portion of the clip we just watched?
So I arrive on scene, go around to my passenger seat where I keep the shooting trauma kit, hand it to what I believe was one of the volunteer firefighters, and then have some trouble with everything that's locked because it was a new unit and everything. She wasn't used to pulling it out as fast. And then I go retrieve a BVM kit. It's a bag valve mask. For airway purposes to help an individual get oxygen.
Okay, thank you.
We need where you at? A seal. You have a seal? A seal? I got a sterile glove, packing gloves. Okay. It's over there. Yeah. My hand is on it. Talking. First you saw it? She came in here, it went across her chest. Okay.
Okay, as I have mentioned numerous times, I'm a concealed carrier, and anybody who is a responsible concealed carrier also carries with them a trauma kit, just like the deputy talked about. Now, his trauma kit is probably a lot bigger than mine, but one of the problems if you are a concealed carrier and you actually have to use your weapon is that there is a good chance that at the same time you're sending rounds down towards somebody else, they're sending rounds back toward you, and it'd be real easy for you to get hit. Or someone standing next to you, or in another car, or maybe the original victim of a crime. And you need to be able to treat gunshot trauma. Now, they teach a class on this called Stop the Bleed. But more importantly than that, particularly when someone is shot in the chest, you actually have to stop the holes. One of the things that many people don't know is that people who are familiar with gunshot wound trauma will carry tampons. Yes, regular tampons, because they're sterile and because they are just about exactly the right size for a bullet hole. And you can plug a wound with a tampon and then you put a chest seal over the top of it. Now, the chest seal that I'm showing here is a 4x4 gauze, or not gauze, 4x4 piece of plastic that is a little bit like having saran wrap that's sticky. And you slap it over the hole in the chest, And in Helena Hutchins' case, they would have had to slap it over the hole in her back as well because the bullet went straight through. And in doing that, you preserve the integrity of the thorax, which means that the patient can continue to breathe, and that when somebody else is breathing for the patient using what he called a BVM, or a bag valve mask resuscitator, where they squeeze it with their hands and it blows air into the lungs, right? Well, when you're doing that, if you have a hole, then a lot of that air is not going into the lungs and getting into the bloodstream, it's going right back out. So when you put the chest seals on, it seals up the lungs so that that doesn't happen. Now you have to be somewhat alert because that can also cause something called a tension hemothorax, but be that as it may, that is the first step in treating gunshot wound trauma. So that's why they're talking about that. You can't see that because they've taken it off of the live stream, but that's what they're doing. Now, watch what happens at the end of this little segment in terms of the technical glitches.
You want air flight? Yeah, we got one in route. Okay. 32 Santa Fe, one female shot in the chest, male shot in the stomach, requested air flight. I got you right here. 2432, how many people you have there? 32, I got just Santa Fe medics. Santa Fe both approximately 140 pounds, elderly male and young female.
Because it was a new unit and everything, which wasn't used to pulling it out as fast. And then I go retrieve a BVM kit. It's a bag valve mask for airway purposes. They can help an individual get oxygen.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you see what happened there? Basically, it captured some portion of his prior testimony and added it in at the end of the video that they were watching. That's a really odd thing to have happen. So you can see that they're having all kinds of technical problems and they're getting stuff replayed through their system that shouldn't be coming back through their system. It's really odd, and it, I think, causes a reasonable jury to look at these prosecutors and say, what's going on? In fact, there is a line from the original Muppet movie that came out, I guess, in the 80s, where Ralph the dog looks at Kermit the Frog after he's had a problem with Miss Piggy, and he says, you know, it's not often that you see a guy that green have the blues that bad. Well, I've expressed the opinion that I think the prosecutor might be a little wet behind the ears here, and he is pretty green, and I think that in terms of the technical area, he's certainly having a case of the blues. Now, contrast this with the defense attorney who then goes after this witness in terms of what was happening with an attorney for the movie production company. After this shooting, one of the first people to arrive on the scene is an attorney. Now, usually attorneys do get a chance to go and investigate and talk and see the crime scene and all that kind of thing, but they don't usually do it before the police. So let's listen.
What was the attorney on the movie set doing?
Speaking to people who were potentially involved or asking them what they seen, I believe. I didn't really hear all the conversations he was having.
Okay. Have you ever been to a crime scene where an attorney shows up and starts talking to witnesses before the police do?
No.
Okay. And would you agree with me that talking to a legal representative of some entity, in this case the movie production, could that have affected the statements that the witnesses gave later to police?
There's a possibility of it, yes.
Okay. Why did you not take steps to stop that from happening?
Because I wasn't the one investigating them individually, right? Reading them the Miranda rights at the time.
Were you aware that this was a problem at the time as you observed it?
Not at the time, no.
It's something you've become aware of by virtue of your training now?
Yes.
Nothing further. Thank you.
That was a really masterful job of summing up what the problem is with having the attorney there. There is a good chance that he is, in effect, canceling out all of the investigation that will follow because that attorney is saying, don't you say a word to anybody. I represent the company and I will handle any questions that come up, and I will set up a time for you to be interviewed, and this will come through me, and I don't want you talking to the cops. If they ask you, you tell them that you've got an attorney and you want to work through your attorney. And in fact, that's not exactly accurate because although he represents the company, he doesn't represent the individuals in the company additionally. That would be a conflict of interest because he has to put his client, which is the company, ahead of the individual employees. So that's what's going on with these questions, and you'll probably see this come up later on. This same defense attorney slaps around the next witness pretty expertly too.
I don't want to take more of your time, being retired and all, and the jury's time. We watched your whole video. You did see additional deputies come onto your lapel, right?
Yes, I did.
All right. After those deputies arrived, why couldn't you have separated those witnesses with the extra manpower that you had?
So I was still processing the whole scene at the time, and I was trying to direct them where I think they needed.
Okay. Would you agree with me that it's important to separate witnesses?
Yes, it is.
Why is that important?
Because you get witnesses telling stories, what they saw, and then they start getting mixed up when the witnesses start talking.
So it can affect the integrity of their observations.
That is correct.
Sir, what's as part of securing the scene, you use crime scene tape, right?
Yellow crime scene tape that's issued to us, yes.
All right, and that's this tape here?
Yes.
All right. Why do you guys use crime scene tape?
We use crime scene tape to secure a perimeter,
Why is that important?
the integrity of the scene.
All right, if the perimeter is not secure, why is that a problem?
People could go in and out. They could take evidence, bring evidence.
Okay. Who figured out where to put this crime scene tape?
I believe it was Copa Alderete and Deputy LaFleur.
Did you give them instruction on how to do that?
I don't believe I did. I think we were just trying to secure as much as we could at the time, trying to have people go in and out of the scene.
Okay, and how did you determine, I guess, what the scene was?
Well, we knew the scene was inside the church where the Joel and Helena were.
Okay. And one of the things you want to do when you're establishing a crime scene, when you put up the tape, the perimeter, you want to make sure that all the important evidence is within that perimeter, right?
Yes, we tried to, yes.
Okay. Do you see that black tent in the background?
Yes, I do.
All right. Do you remember walking up to that black tent on your lapel video?
If I do, I don't remember, but I do remember seeing a black tent up there.
All right. Judge, I've discussed this with counsel. I'll admit to excerpts of the lieutenant's lapel as defendant's exhibits G and H.
No objection.
All right. Defendants G and H are admitted. You may publish.
So one thing I think that has to be pointed out here, because it's interesting to me, I guess, but the prosecution and the defense have worked together to kind of debug the exhibits. In other words, when the defense wants to admit parts of the body cam and denote them as their own separate exhibits on behalf of the defense, the other side doesn't have a problem with that, and they work together cooperatively so that there's no objection and the judge doesn't have to rule on anything. That's a mark of very professional attorneys on both sides, and that may mitigate to some degree my comment that maybe these guys haven't done this a lot, or at least the one fellow hasn't done this a lot, because that does tend to be something that more senior attorneys, people who've been around the block a time or two, do, just because it makes everything go faster for everybody. And I don't think there's any way of disputing the fact for attorneys that a day in trial is like 4 days on a treadmill. I mean, it's really, really tough, and it's physically exhausting, and it's emotionally exhausting. And so anything you can do to sort of shorten that time and limit the amount of stress you have is a good idea, and that's apparently what they're doing, which I think is great. Well, that's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below, or if you'd like, you can email me at the address above. If you have the opportunity today, try to go out of your way and do something nice for someone. Maybe take a coworker to lunch. Maybe bring back lunch for a coworker. Who knows? Lots of things you can do to make somebody's day better. Thanks again for watching, and please meet me down here at the beach again tomorrow. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.